Well, there's a lot of lightning going on right now. Alright, what's going on, guys? So, today we're going to be talking about the episode, The Frankenstein Experiment. For the title, you can probably tell that it's about, you know, Dr. Frankenstein and, more famously, his monster that, you know, a lot of people like to call Frankenstein. And then now you got a lot of people who will correct you that no, it's not Frankenstein, it's Frankenstein's monster. Look, just to let you know, I'm probably going to be calling the monster Frankenstein. And go ahead and write in the comments.
Bury me here.
So the way this episode opens up is we actually see the other famous, like, kind of assistant, Frankenstein's assistant, that's Igor. Or sometimes they call him Igor, depends on which character is calling him.
What's this?
So we see him like digging graves, obviously getting body parts for Frankenstein, because you know that's what Dr. Frankenstein needs for his monster. So when we see the title for this episode, it's just like the way we seen the title for the previous episode, which is The Crypt for Dracula, or Crypt of Dracula. I already forgot what the episode title is already. Sorry about that. Well, and like I actually really like that they did with this kind of font, and like all it does is just make me wish that they did this for the first episode for the Curse of Samantha Romero. At this point, I really think that someone forgot and to do it, and me personally, I would love to see this corrected in the DVD, which is coming out in December, but I don't see that happening. We see the Turtles and Renette come in, like, it's almost just like how we saw from the end of the previous episode where they go in, they see the castle, and Renette says, "Oh,
That, turtle companions?
there's Castle Frankenstein, or Frankenstein's castle." So it's almost like they just kind of like just reused that part again, just to kind of remind us. Like, I guess mainly for like people who are just coming into this episode or seeing it like just out of order and everything, so they know where it's going on. As we begin this episode, actually, so we see Raphael, vampire, and something he actually mentions is that he actually hasn't had the taste of like real blood. He does mention that he's been drinking the blood of rats, but he wants something like real and everything.
I get to drink some real blood tonight, right?
I guess this is the word saying that like he's not a full vampire yet, but we do see him and the mummy. They go try to like kind of mess with the turtles. Where when they enter into forest, we have like the turtles and Renette. They actually are like fighting their fears and these illusions, as like it's like common like they're monsters and everything. They're personal monsters. Like Renette is fighting against Savante Romero. Donnie, he's actually going against both April and Casey. Mikey, we get to see Pizza Face again, which is actually really cool. And at one point, he actually, when we first like see these illusions, he actually tries to eat the pizza, which we find out it's like trees. But the coolest illusion is actually Leonardo, as he sees Shredder. And at one point, we actually see like all the forms of Shredder. We see, the Shredder when we first saw him in the first episode. Then we see the Super Shredder. We even see Zombie Shredder. And at one point, we also see Karai, and we see her human. We also see her as the mutant snake. It was actually really cool just to see all that. Even though it wasn't actually Shredder like Leonardo's fighting, but it was actually kind of cool just seeing Shredder again. It's been forever since, almost like, it feels like forever since we've seen Shredder.
It's alive!
Donatello, what's alive?
The bug is alive.
The bug is alive? I don't know what you're doing, Donatello. Obviously from this episode title, this is about, Frankenstein, and, we see Dr. Frankenstein trying to make his monster. They don't really explain why he's doing it. At this point, do we really need to know why he's trying to who's trying to make the monster. I mean, it's a 22-minute episode. Like, we don't need to go into that specific. But the weird part for me is, so the Turtles and Rennet know that Savante Romero are actually trying to like recruit all these monsters, and then Donatello, he actually helps the Doctor create Frankenstein for some reason. I just don't know.
I'm quite impressed with your knowledge.
Thanks, Doc.
Like, they don't really explain why, and just in the back of my mind during that part, I was kind of like, don't they not want this monster to come? Don't they like want like Savante Romero not to have this monster in here? When we actually do see Frankenstein, it's actually kind of weird. It's actually what I was not expected. If you remember in the first episode, we actually saw Frankenstein briefly, and he's like kind of like menacing and that kind of stuff. When we see him, he's kind of like almost childlike and friendly, like where he doesn't know who he is or what he's doing. Michelangelo, he actually calls him Frank.
My name's Mikey. You're Frank. Frank, say it with me.
And I should probably start calling him Frank from now on, because I know I've been calling him Frankenstein for like at least 3 times already. But we see with Frank, he's almost kind of like Hulk-like, where like he can't control his emotions and he starts like lashing out. Actually, when he starts like lashing out and just fighting against the Turtles, it's actually a really fluid animation that I actually really like. And like we actually get one point where like Michelangelo's is just on top of him, and just the way it moves and the way he like moves around against like everyone else is actually really nice, actually really cool looking. Now, we do know with Donatello, so obviously he helps out Frankenstein. Like I said, not sure why, but he does find out that Dr. Frankenstein actually has synthetic blood, which actually was used inside of Frank, which Donatello actually wants to hopefully help Raphael to hopefully cure him, or at least cure this hunger he has for blood. So in here we also see a lot more of Dracula, and Dracula really acts like the way I feel Dracula should act, where he doesn't feel like a lackey for Savante Romero. It kind of feels like he's doing his own thing.
Do not irritate me, demon.
He actually, he controls Dr. Frankenstein. He actually makes the Doctor see Savante Romero as like another doctor, just with illusions and everything. You kind of see how powerful he is. Something really cool about him is that we see like with Dracula, like he has like that pale face, kind of boss-like kind of thing, almost kind of like something that we see from like Hotel Transylvania, for example. And then when he's attacking or when he's mad, we see that pale white face turn into like this bluish gray with like these kind of like shadows like sunken in, just to make it look more menacing, which is actually really cool. When he's actually fighting, he doesn't actually like physically fight. He actually he kind of floats and just he kind of floats and moves, he's kind of like, oh, I know I'm awesome and I don't need to do much. Like Leonardo is trying to at one point he actually tries to fire his stake gun thing that he has, and Dracula actually goes and just catches one of them, and with a hand doesn't even look like he's even looking at it, and it just kind of shows just how powerful he is, and which made me actually really like him here more than what we saw of him from the previous episode. Now, poor Mummy. We at the beginning of the episode, we see him. He's the one who's doing all the magic and everything to make the illusions for the turtles, and then it comes to the third act where everybody's fighting, and what happens is he's actually on fire and he actually gets out of the fight. In fact, the werewolf, we don't really see him much in like the first 2 acts, but then the 3rd act he actually does fight. But it's almost like if he didn't fight in that 3rd act, I would have forgotten that he was actually in the episode. Like, it's just that they were concentrating so much on Dracula and Zavante Romero and obviously Frank that it's almost like those 2 monsters just kind of had to just get some screen time, like just cut out. I will say the 3rd act, that fight scene is actually really cool. Like at one point, actually, Donatello is fighting Raphael, and Raphael is like on all fours, just kind of crawling on the wall. At one point, his head actually turns around, looking all freaky. His eyes kind of like this bluish tint in there, and we see like his fangs, and obviously he just wants to just like, you know, suck the turtle's blood. Donatello, he actually makes good use of his staff, which actually I really like. And like we actually see at one point, like we see the top part where the charm thing that we saw from the previous episode, but then like the bottom part is still like that blade that we've seen in other in previous episodes and everything. I actually really like that. You know, it's still his staff. He just like, you know, just added that into it, as he's really the only turtle in this episode that actually uses his weapon, as like, you know, Leonardo uses more of his stake gun, and Michelangelo, he's just kind of moving around and trying to just calm down. I really like the way they did Frank, and he kind of looks different from what I'm expecting. Like, you know, he still has like, you know, different body parts, the stitching, and like, you know, what's actually really cool is that like we see that his head has like 2 different colors, so it's supposed to be like, you know, 2 different skins like sewn together. And then like he has his back, the way he's powered up is almost like, I feel like it's almost like steampunkish kind of. Like we see he has like 2 pistons on his back, and it's just like kind of pumping up and down. It's actually like a very different design than what I was expecting. But also I was expecting him just to be like, I was expecting him to be more like, you know, like Dracula or even werewolf, like before, like, you know, like after he transforms, and not like, you know, when he was like the human. And I wasn't expecting him to be just kind of confused or friendly. That's actually a really nice touch that they did, and I actually like that they just explored more into there. Another thing, like, so if you saw the previous episode, you know when it ended and when they went to Germany, that Renette says that, you know, that's it for her staff and everything, that she has no power. We see that, you know, we see her using it as a weapon, and like as we see that there's no power. So basically just kind of like just taking that staff out of the equation, just to make it that the turtles have to fight like without supernatural powers, which does keep everything kind of grounded in here. We do see that there is a solution for them to actually go back to the present, which is much needed, since obviously next episode we need to see the conclusion. We need to see them go back. I like the way they actually.
It's alive. It's alive.
Well, did you make another bug come to life?
They're coming all alive with my power.
No, okay. Stop making bugs come to life. So, something I do want to add, like some like little touches they do. You know, they travel to Germany, which, you know, Frankenstein, like that's kind of like where the name originates from. And, you know, we have like iconic. We have the thunder. We have the lightning. There's even one point where the turtles are fighting in the rain, which is just perfect. You know, operating table, the monster is lying down with the sheet covered on, and they raise it up and everything for the lightning to strike and everything. We don't hear that classic like, oh, it's alive! It's alive! We don't actually hear that in this episode. We do hear like some other things in here that does reference into that, but just not that line. I was kind of a little surprised about that. Just some other touches. Dr. Frankenstein, he actually has a German accent, which actually I really like. Frank does not. I'll forgive him because he's a monster. And at one point we see a grave, and the grave is actually written in German. It's just like little touches like that, like just like most of the time these gets like forgotten, especially on kids shows. It gets forgotten in like major budget movies as well. I actually like that they took that time to put that in there. And overall, this episode was great. Really like how they handled Frankenstein, and I just can't wait for the conclusion of this as we've seen all 4 monsters here. So obviously next episode we're gonna have this big royal Halloween rumble, which I cannot wait for. So what are you doing? Okay.
Can you connect it to high voltage?
No, we don't need to connect anything to high voltage. Like, do you hear like the thunder right there? You're gonna get like shocked. You shouldn't be plugging into anything. Donzel, what are you doing?
It's alive.
Soon you won't be alive if you keep doing like this. What? No, get that away. Alright, let me know down in the comments below. What do you guys think about this episode? And what do you think just overall? And alright, till next time guys. See ya.
Like and subscribe. We are a group of Frankensteins. Classic Frankenstein, lightning. Monster mutant Frankenstein, lightning. Frankenstein. Cute Donatello Frankenstein. Like and subscribe.